Hello, I'm back and I want to do a little tie-up for this series that we're doing on Pope Leo XIV and the Great Monarch, Donald J. Trump. I want to clarify what was discussed in this series of videos about the Pope and the part that Trump has played in this election. The Vatican has been seriously involved in human trafficking and money laundering. The United States government and world governments have been taken over by a worldwide criminal cabal. The U.S. military, the White Hats, we'll call it, they call it an insurgency, not an invasion. So you didn't see a bunch of ships coming up shore and a bunch of soldiers coming out and taking over our government. Rather, people from this group have been moved into high positions of power all over the world. The U.S. military, called the White Hats, is running an operation, a long-going operation, to free us and the world from this evil and this tyranny that it produces, because that's the only way the evil can keep going. It has to have control and dominance and a tyranny, a dictatorship-like control over the people. Trump was asked to run for president by the military. He is part of this operation. And he also happens to be the Great Monarch. So it was preordained in God's way of speaking that he would be here for this. Now, some of the things that have to happen or be done to free us and the world from this tyranny, this dictatorship. And if you doubt that the whole world is involved in this, think back to when we had the COVID problem. It wasn't just in one country, it was in all countries. The vaccine was being pushed in all countries. People were being locked down and businesses were being bankrupted. The people were being terrorized in all countries by this same cabal. So some of the things that have to be done to free us, we have to take down the Federal Reserve System, the IRS, the British Crown has to be dismantled. There are 3 cities that rule this world: London, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C. Each one of these cities that I mentioned is really its own country or state within a country. The Vatican is its own, so is the city of London. In fact, when the king or queen wanted to visit that special part of London, they had to ask permission, almost like getting a visa, to cross over the boundary. Much of this has already been done and is in the process. It is certainly not something that you do quickly in a few days or even a few months. It's been being worked on since Trump first ran for president back in 2016. Now, it's based on this, and this is what many people do not understand. Of course, a lot of people don't even know the name of their Congress representative or their senator. So, that's not surprising. But there was a military operation, a military intel board, often known by some people as number 17, that gave this information out over a period of 3.5 years. Now, Trump's first executive order was written in 2017, December. Executive order number 13818. It's an interesting order because it was the beginning of what the Intel Board referred to as American Revolution 2.0. This executive order blocks property of anyone involved in serious human trafficking. Well, that takes in a whole lot of people. And a lot of people didn't pay too much attention to this. And this is what, there are a series of executive orders that go hand in hand with this. To make things short, which is what I'm trying to do right now, is to keep this short and succinct. It can always be expanded upon later. This is why When Trump was elected this time and he asked Canada to become the 51st state and he wanted to buy Greenland, what those people who are uninformed about what's going on don't realize is that we will get those properties. It would be smarter for Greenland for the Greenlanders to go ahead and vote and get paid money for their property. Trump has also offered them a stipend every year for as long as they live, which would be like Social Security disability, which would be a payback. He's willing to pay. He's a real estate man. But one way or the other, we will acquire these lands and they will be annexed to the United States of America. You say, how can he do that? That's just unconscionable. Well, I'm sure that wherever you live, you must have heard about the fact that when someone is involved in selling drugs and they get caught by the police can confiscate their property, their house, their cars, their swimming pool, everything, because of the illegal activities are affecting many people in that community. So they need to make reparations, one might say. If you realize that, you say, well, then it's something you can use as a basis to understand what I'm trying to explain to you. The British Crown is involved in the greatest way with the human trafficking. The Queen and King of England and the Crown have had to be dismantled because they are involved in this. Now, Greenland, accordingly to the King and Queen of Denmark, they own Greenland. However, I remember just not 2 years ago where a lot of things came through on the Patriot Board about the King and Queen of Denmark having dirty hands where it comes to human trafficking and accepting large fees for allowing the big cargo ships that carry these metal shipping containers which are filled with human beings, and many times children from around the world. So according to this executive order, it goes something like this. Trump or the State Department says, hey, you've been involved in this. We're confiscating your property. Do you have any collateral? Well, you have a nice crown of that. Well, we would like Greenland. Yeah, we'll take Greenland. Because a lot of those children came from this country. And a lot of evil has been perpetrated on the world by the people running these operations. And besides, the United States wants control of the Arctic shipping lanes. Who's going to watch them? Who's going to keep these ships from going through with all this human cargo? If you think the slave trade died out a couple of centuries ago, that ain't nothing compared to what is going on at this time. But if you don't get involved and do research and just listen to the mainstream media, you might not know anything about it. Now, Steve Bannon, many people know him. He has a program called The War Room on the internet. He's an American patriot. He's a political advisor. But no one has ever accused Steve Bannon of being a prophet. I don't think that's in his resume. However, 2 weeks before the papal conclave, Steve Bannon made an astounding prophecy. He said we were going to have an American Pope. The fix was in. Well, lo and behold, we have an American Pope, so I guess we'll have to start calling Steve Bannon a prophet. Now, that means that he was selected prior to the conclave. That's why things went so fast. Okay, but Trump's meme should have given you a hint. The meme that he put out between the time Francis died and the conclave began, he put out a meme showing himself dressed as the Pope. that wasn't a joke. It wasn't a cartoon to laugh at. It was a message, a calm to those of us who are more familiar with what's going on, a subliminal message. He's telling the globalists, if you think you're going to get a pope, you better get one like me, okay? You're not going to offend Trump. You're not going to go against his wishes because he's fighting these globalists to make America great again, to make the world great again, and to make the Vatican great again. So Trump and the White Hats have something to say about who's going to be Pope. You say, that's terrible. Why would they have anything to do with the Catholic Church? Well, I'm sorry, you've got to wake up to the fact that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, has been up to its eyeballs involved in human trafficking. Just take a look at over here in America. All these illegal immigrants coming in are being brought in by these NGOs, non-governmental organizations that get big grants and big chunks of money. And one of them is Catholic Charities. Yep, they get a whole lot of money for bringing these illegals in and helping them get settled down. And that fills the coffers of the Catholic Church. Now, Trump would have something to say about who is going to be Pope. That's what he's trying to tell you in that meme. He's trying to free us from this evil, and he would want to strengthen the church. Trump loves the Catholic Church as a force for good in the world. He sees it as a force for good because he knows the world has strayed very far from the Ten Commandments. And he would like to have a pope that isn't wacky like Bergoglio. Bergoglio was for all the things that Trump is against and fighting to get out of our country. He would want someone more traditional because this would help the people. When people were extremely enamored when they saw Pope Leo come out on the loggia in traditional vestments and speaking Latin and singing the Regina Caeli. Oh my goodness. Wasn't that like a fist bump? Traditional Catholics were fist bumping all over the place. So even if it is external, okay, even if it's only window dressing, and this is what I was saying to my friend David. I felt he might have a horse in the race because early on he wanted to know, do we have a traditional pope, okay, or do we have a radical progressive? I said, well, you might, you got a horse in the race. What we don't know is whether or not Leo was approached by the White Hats to cooperate willingly. Because I'm sure every time Trump would see Francis, I'm sure he would break out in a rash. This is not my idea, but this is not what the Catholic Church was. And he's always into restoring things, restoring traditional ways. So, we don't know if he's doing this willingly cooperating or if he's been forced to follow some guidelines. People ask what to expect from Pope Leo, conservative and traditional behavior or more Bergoglioism. The answer is both. You have a lot of Catholic influencers saying, oh, he's traditional. Oh, we got a real pope. Well, first place, he is not a valid pope. But if you want to know whether or not as representing the pope, he has simply been approved by the Holy See, the administration, the government of the Vatican, does not make him a valid pope. That's why his coat of arms that you saw, which was thrown over the balcony of the loggia, is simply the coat of arms of the administrative department of the Holy See. They always put the coat of arms of the previous pope on the loggia when the new pope comes out to greet the people for the first time. That's why Bergoglio had nothing but a plain sheet. He must have had to grab a sheet off of someone's bed, because he certainly wasn't the successor to Benedict. And Leo isn't the successor to Benedict. He's simply been approved by the government, the administrative body of the Vatican, which I'm sure would have a lot to do with the United States State Department approving this man. Now let's see how that goes. Well then, if it's both, yes, he will be towing the line where Trump and the White Hats have a say. But in other areas, expect Bergoglio 2.0, just a different style, more subtle. Now, to prove this, notice that Trump, who always promotes MAGA, which means he promotes family, increasing the number of children. That's why he wants to approve IVF, because the population has been declining steadily. The COVID shots made a lot of women sterile. He's talked about having a $5,000 bonus for children. If you get pregnant, he's going to give you a $5,000 baby bonus. He's for increasing religion and morality. He's for no woke baloney. So what did Leo do? Immediately within the first week, he gave a strong promotion for the family, being the unit of society that keeps society strong. One man, one woman. No transgenderism. Doesn't that sound like Trump? He kind of made it an executive order. No universities, no schools can be teaching this stuff or promoting it. And then, voila. 1 week later, he changes the Grand Chancellor of the John Paul II National Shrine, where I've seen over the years Trump and Melania made special visits, honoring John Paul II. It's our national shrine. I'm sure Trump said, you want federal funds? Get that guy Paglia out. Now let me tell you who Bishop Paglia is. Well, I will quote an Italian investigative journalist. He had what he called a fresco painted over there on the John Paul II shrine. First place, this Italian journalist is also an art historian. He said an American wouldn't know a fresco from a mural. It's a mural. And it's a huge mural depicting homosexual erotic acts. I can imagine Trump's toes curling when he and Melania went there. So it didn't take Leo XIV long to get rid of Bishop Paglia out of the national shrine. And he put in someone a lot more traditional. You can see him following Trump's orders down to the T. All right? But let's look at the other things that the very next day he appoints a nun to rule over priests. He appoints that's Sister Simone, Brandbilla. He appoints a bishop in St. Gallen, Switzerland, who's a known open advocate for homosexuals. He also appoints a Vietnamese as bishop in San Diego. And he's a known Bergoglio addict. But see, those things is where he's allowed leeway, because they're not national, but not in the national shrine, not where we gets federal funds. Get that woke, transgender, homosexual erotic. They get that out of my national shrine. And Leo, boom, did it. He also came out declaring there are only two genders, male and female, did everything that you can imagine Trump would say you have to do if you want us to stay off your back. Because executive order could allow confiscation of property. Church property. Yep. So they're going to follow the line. But remember this. This would cause stability of religion. It would look good. The church would look stable and normal. He wants that. Remember, even if it's window dressing, because Leo is not a valid pontiff. He is not the successor of Benedict XVI. We actually do not have a valid pope at this time. Now, this is why you will see Leo XIV swinging between both traditional actions and Bergoglian actions. That's why. But even though he swings between the two, it does not cancel out, this is where we have to be very careful, the fact that he still may be a good guy, a white hat, cooperating with the white hats, helping voluntarily to rid the world of evil and to rid the Vatican of evil. We have to have an inside guy. Trump is working from the inside of the federal government. So we don't know if Leo is doing this voluntarily or just doing what he's forced to do to keep peace with the man that is the most powerful in the world at this time. And those are the words of Mohammed bin Salman. He said that Trump was really the closest thing right now to president of the world. And there's a second thing we must think of with Pope Leo. If he is doing this voluntarily, that would make him a good guy. You say, well, then why, if he's a good guy, would he do these Bergoglian type radical actions? Because he must too walk a very, very tight rope. It isn't just presidents that people attempt to assassinate. Priests and bishops also can be assassinated. And if you doubt that, just remember that's how we got John Paul II, because of them getting rid of John Paul I. So he walks a tightrope. We must pray for him. We must pray for him. And we must keep hope. And we must remember who is really running the show. God above. And I love the fact that this involvement with Trump's role in this, I can understand that those that are involved with the military operation, the intel board, those who went through the 3.5 years of reading the Post and learning the narrative would know what's going on. But I wanted to mention that there is an Italian gentleman who's looks like he's in his 80s, and he gets interviewed frequently by the Italian video influencers and creators, because he is considered to be an expert on things Vatican and things papal. And just a couple of, I think 2 days ago, there was an interview, and the man was asking him, how did he think we got Pope Leo? And he started to talk about politics and the world being, he actually said there was so much evil in the world at this time. And the man got a little irritated. He said, I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about religion. But Mr. Gotti got very irritated too. And he said, look, you cannot separate the two. Right now in the world, with the amount of evil that's going on, and the Pope being a geopolitical figure, he said even the election in the United States of Donald Trump is not irrelevant to the election of this Pope, end quote. And I thought, whoopee, you're getting it. Even our foreign pundits and experts are catching on. It was his quote that he knew this election of Trump had something to do with us getting this Pope that's a whole lot more traditional looking and acting, even though it is window dressing, because he is not a valid Pope. But let us pray for him. Let us pray for him, and that he does good to help free the Vatican from the globalist influence and from removing the cardinals and bishops that are involved with this human and sexual trafficking. It needs to be cleaned up, just like Trump is doing to clean up our country. Okay, thank you so much. Goodbye, and hope you enjoyed it.